Okay. Right now my laptop camera is on. But it's gonna give out in a few minutes. So let me just show my face real quick and welcome everyone. I'm so glad to be here. So glad to see you here, that you made it to this space to get really good, great information in your healing body, mind, and spirit. My name is Ayo Hines Bankole, and I want to thank Brother Rojo and the Powerful Pioneers for allowing me to present today. I am a conscious living coach, owner of Conscious Living Care, where I guide people to take a look at how their lifestyle affects their quality of life, whether good or bad. And one of the tools that I love to use is essential oils, essential oil therapies. I'm going to share some other tools with you for good health, good mental health, good body health, and spiritual health. Today is going to be concentrated on diabetes awareness. This is Diabetes Awareness Month. It's also National Nutrition Month, so we'll look at that as well. I also do coaching, group coaching and one-on-one coaching on overall health, and specializing in doing detoxes. So, okay, without further ado, let me get my, so I'm already sharing my screen. All right, let me move this here, and I'm gonna actually come off camera. Move that around there. Okay. So, all right. Okay, so essential oils beyond the aroma. So what I wanted to do is to look at using essential oils, not just for the scent. So essential oils can be used on the body very well as well. Okay. And I'll explain that in a moment. So essential oils have been used for thousands and thousands of years. Our ancestors um, were steam distilling oils from different plant materials for thousands and thousands of years. That information can be seen on many walls in Kemet, Egypt. The information has been well documented by our ancestors, which is a beautiful thing. Anyone who is familiar with the Bible, you'll see the oils and incense mentioned a number of dozens of times. Okay, so we know that they had their healing effects. Again, here you can see again more examples of showing oils used by our ancestors thousands of years ago. And so, as I mentioned, they're steam distilled from various areas of the plant. The flower, the petal, the leaf, the root, the bark, the stem, the rind, okay, they are essential to the life of the plant. They're antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, the list goes on, because they protect the plant. They actually are protective to the plant. Whereas a seed oil, so when you think of your olive oil, grapeseed oil, jojoba oil, castor oil, those are from the seed of the plant. They are for the next generation. They get the next generation ready of the plant. But they also have their, they have some wonderful properties as well. But we're going to look at the essential oil. The one that's essential to life. So our ancestors realized they were essential to our lives as well. So generally, like I said, they're steam distilled. So in the modern times, they're put in a big vat like this, and this is from a farm out in Utah. I actually got to go there myself to witness how this is done. So there's an art and a science to the ability to make the oil, to distract the oil. You just can't, I mean, you could, get some lavender flowers and, steam them, and you'll see the oil and water separate. But there's a lot more that it takes to getting the hundreds, I should say, of constituents that the oil from the flower produces. So sometimes the plant material just needs to, after it's gathered, it just needs to lie down, right? Sometimes it's according to what time of the day you get the plant material, in terms of, the amount of constituents that you get out of it. And this is at a company called Young Living. I'll talk a little bit about them. But this is their farm and their distillation process. So how do you use essential oils? Of course, as you all may know, you inhale them, right? So you can just put a drop in your hand and rub them in your hand, cup your hands over your nose and do a nice deep inhale. You can also just inhale them from the bottle. What's nice to use is a diffuser. It's basically called a cold diffuser because you don't want to heat the oils. Do not, please, if you're using a quality essential oil, do not heat the oil. Do not use those oil burners. It will change the constituency of the oil. But with the typical diffuser that you see out there, you put a few drops in water, and it makes a steam for you to inhale the oil from the steam into the air. You can use it neat on your body or even diluted with the compress or in the bath. Okay, so neat means no dilution, and you would dilute it typically with a seed oil, right? And then if you have a really good grade of an essential oil, you can use them internally. So you could put them in your food. You can put them in a capsule, again, with the seed oil, like in a veggie cap. You can put them in your drink, all right? Most oils are generally regarded as safe, GRAS. The Young Living brand makes that known, and they also post nutritional value of the oil. Most oil companies do not do that. So, I talked about, so the big thing that everybody knows about essential oils is the aroma, right? And so what happens when you inhale the oil? When you inhale the oil, as soon as you inhale, it goes to the olfactory bulb in the brain and gets reinterpreted to the emotional center of the brain. Okay. So that this shows that this is all a frequency. It's all electric. This is live, because as soon as you inhale an oil, you start to feel something, whether it brings you up or relaxes you. It makes you feel romantic. The only thing I would say is that they do not make you angry. it's always some good feeling. All right. One of the best places to put essential oils is on the bottom of the feet when you're using them neat, or even if you need to dilute it, because some people's skin are a little bit more sensitive. Some oils are what's called hot. They produce heat. So something like cinnamon or clove or even oregano, they tend to be a little hot to the body. So you might want to dilute those. But what this is showing here is that on the feet, the different organs of the body are represented on the feet, sort of like acupuncture. And anyone who's ever had reflexology done, this is what's going on. They are stimulating various parts of your body. All right, when you have a reflexology done to you. But now if you add on another layer of essential oils, imagine, right, how that frequency now really builds up. So you already have the science of touch on your body, and now the science of an oil that is going to move you emotionally in some way, or start to exude its healing properties in some way. One technique that's used is called VitaFlex, and it's sort of like acupressure and acupuncture, where someone uses a little bit of their nail on their fingers, so they're applying pressure to, let's say, the liver point right here of the body, and they rubbed an oil in that area and just keep massaging it, but sort of with their nails. So you're kind of getting an acupuncture and acupressure at the same time. And you can do this yourself, of course. So now when we look at diabetes, right? And one thing I just want to say about essential oils before I go into this, and I'm going to reference a book that I like to use that goes through different mental and physical ailments that could be going on in your body. I just want to make it plain that you don't just take an oil and it's going to fix this, or you take an oil and it's going to fix that. That's not how they work. It has to sometimes it's in conjunction with other lifestyle changes. So, so during this telethon that you're a part of, you're going to hear about, many other healing modalities. And so as a combination, or, in conjunction with that, what you're getting, you can add essential oils as another tool. All right. I just wanted to, make sure that you were clear about that. So with diabetes, so we know the problem with diabetes is with the blood sugar, right? And it's the way that the body regulates or uses sugar in the body. There's a hormone called insulin that controls the blood glucose level. But when things get out of whack, that's where we now have this issue that's been labeled as diabetes. Most of the imbalances that we have in the body has been given a label. By the time this imbalance is noticed, the body's in a sort of a chronic state. And number one, let's think about prevention. And number two, if you're in that category, let's think about ways that we can either maintain in a healthy manner or reverse in a healthy manner. So there are basically two types of diabetes that have been identified. Type 1 is typically more a genetic issue, where the body's immune system eliminates the cells which naturally produce insulin. So that's more of a genetic thing. That usually happens in, at birth. Type 2, which is also called chronic hyperglycemia, is when the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin. And so, and the cells response to insulin is poor, such that it takes in less sugar, which then builds up in the blood. All right. So that's where your doctor would say that you have a high blood sugar count. Right. So this is the most common. It kind of winds up developing as people get older because they're doing different things in their life, the food that they eat, the stress that they're under, so that this blood sugar gets out of control. It happens in children too, especially if, children are stressed too, and not always given the best food choices. So when we're in this state, it can lead to stroke, heart disease, vision issues, nerve damage, loss of limbs, and even possible dementia. And there's even more. This is just a short list of what diabetes can do to the body. And, this was sort of my introduction into the holistic world because quite a few people in my family were dealing with diabetes. And, I'm watching them, being medicated, some taking insulin. And I knew that I did not want to go down that road. So I started looking for alternative ways in my late 20s, early 30s to find out what can I do to keep myself away from being in this pattern. So I just want to put out a little disclaimer here that the next few slides are for educational purposes only. I want you to consult with your doctor before adding any supplements that are mentioned here. Please do not stop taking. Please don't stop taking any medications that you're on unless you are directed to do so by your doctor. Okay. So I mentioned that, so there are natural tools to assist, and I'm starting out with essential oils. And basically, in terms of essential oils, again, it's not a direct fix. It's not a direct a change in insulin necessarily. It may assist in managing the blood sugar levels. It can assist in cravings, fatigue that you may feel, any mood swings, and your weight, helping with weight loss. So there is one thing about the company that I like to purchase my oils from, this Young Living company. They're always experimenting. At least the founder of the company, Dr. Young, he would go out himself. Did not sit behind a desk counting his money. He was actually out in the field looking for new plant species, and he did a lot of work in the Amazon, specifically in Ecuador. For his findings and work, he would give tremendously to the villages of the people that assisted him. So he found this plant called okati, which is again used for hundreds and hundreds of years from the Amazon, considered a false cinnamon because it kind of has a cinnamon-like taste. And kind of acts the way that cinnamon does in a sense. So it does help to manage your blood sugar. And it also offers digestive support, makes you feel full, and it can curb cravings. Okay. And this is one to, again, to diffuse, to take internally. Just one drop is normally needed. That's the other thing about essential oils. They are highly, highly concentrated. So that's why they come in small bottles, because you only need 1 or 2 drops to be effective. All right. And I'll have my information at the end so that you can find out more about how you can use these oils. Hopefully you can see the top of the screen. Okay. Let's see. So at the top is coriander, because I can't see the top. Coriander is known to regulate the insulin release activity, okay, in the pancreas. And anyone that's ever had coriander, it's a wonderful spice. But did you know that it's great for diabetes, for diabetic use? Frankincense is another one. It stimulates the immune system, helps in balancing the blood sugar. And one great thing about frankincense, again, one that's been mentioned in the Bible, is when you inhale it. So, when you take these oils, whether you put it on your body or you take it internally, as soon as you use it, it still has that inhalation effect. So if you just use it internally, you're still going to, it's going to permeate through your body. So you're still going to inhale it, even when you take it internally. And so you still have that with frankincense, that spiritual effect. So it's relaxing. So while it's stimulating the immune system, it's also relaxing you and putting you in a better state of mind. And that's what a lot of them do. The next one I'd like to feature is ylang ylang. Beautiful oil from the flower of the plant, very sweet, very loving, helps to reduce the blood pressure and the heart rate. And why not? And that's, a side effect of being diabetic. So as I mentioned before, it can lead to heart disease. So again, we're looking at prevention. It's not just direct, let's regulate the blood sugar, but let's work on all the body systems, right? So ylang ylang just makes you feel young. It makes you feel good when you inhale it. So you put it on your body and inhale. So again, you can put it on the areas of the feet that relate to the pancreas, the heart, and all over. So cinnamon, again, gives you that it's kind of makes you feel like you're having sugar, right? If you ever put cinnamon in anything that you eat or drink, it and you don't have that much sugar in it, when you put cinnamon, it kind of makes you feel like it's a little sweeter. Okay. That's interesting. It's a hot oil, it's a hot spice, but it makes you feel it makes it, but it's a sweetener as well. So that's interesting. Okay. And lavender, another one that's relaxing. Many people have heard about lavender. Definitely would help to regulate the blood pressure, right? 100%. Oregano, another hot oil. And so another study found that it helps to regulate the glucose in the body. Okay. I just want to point out a study. This was done in the critical, I can't see the top of this. It's a critical review, I think, of nutrition organization paper journal. And this was actually done in January of 2023. I wanted to find something, kind of up to date. And so a review was done on the anti-diabetic plants, uh, plants considered anti-diabetic and their essential oil compounds. So I'm not going to, of course, read the whole study. It is very, goes into a lot of detail, scientific information, but the bottom line is that the essential oil compounds that are found in some of the oils that I mentioned, so I didn't mention thyme, so this is thymol, that's found in thyme. Citronol is, citrus of citronella, of course. So there are many, many more oils. I just highlighted a few, but they were demonstrated to contain strong anti-diabetic effects by modulating various signal transduction pathways that dealt with glucose metabolism. Right. And if you want any further information on this, of course, I can send this to you. But one place that I'd like to use the most is it's a book. It's an essential oil pocket reference book. It's not being published anymore, but you can find them either on Amazon or eBay. There's a pocket reference size and there's a full desk size, which has the full desk size has a lot of color pictures. This one is basically in black and white, but it goes through hundreds of oils, how they're used, the medicinal use of them, the history of them, and then that's in the beginning of the book. And the second half of the book has a list of uses. So everything from acne to warts to liver issues, digestive issues, emotional anxiety, stress, just everything and anything, heart disease that's going on in the body, sexual dysfunction, you'll find it in this pocket reference of which oils, again, can be used to support in a supportive mode for things that are going on. Okay. For anyone that wants to get started with essential oils, there are a couple of kits that I recommend from this company called Young Living. So in this one, it's just a handful of oils, which you can get started using right away. I can guide you on that. You'll see an offer that I have so that we can get together and talk about how to use these oils. But you get a diffuser. You get a diffuser with it, and you get some single oils, but mostly two single oils, lavender and peppermint, which are used for, I'm going to say hundreds of things, but many, several things. I'm not, maybe hundreds is exaggerating, but many things. And that's from on your body to emotions. The Thieves Blend has your cinnamon, has the clove, rosemary, eucalyptus, lemon. Okay, it's a beautiful blend for antibacterial, antiviral use and purification. has the citronella, and lemongrass, a nice smell, used to purify the air. Also a great for getting rid of insects coming on you. And of course, lavender, we already discussed a little bit. Peppermint, very uplifting to the body, great for digestive issues. This blend called Deep Relief is for any type of pain, any of the itises that you might have going on, arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, okay? Stress Away is another oil for just relaxing. It has vanilla and lime in that one. In Deep Relief, it has helichrysum, wintergreen, peppermint, and a few other oils that escape me right now. Another great way, if you're really ready to dive in and use these oils fully, and anyone that gets this whole kit, I will make sure that you have that book, that essential oils book, because I know that you are serious and you're ready. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 oils in here, plus a diffuser. Okay. All right. So I don't know if we're taking any questions at this point, but are there any questions in the chat or comments before I move on to the next section?
We'll leave the comment for the chat room, so you could definitely comment in the chat room.
Okay. All right, great. All right. So I wanted to move on to nutrition. More tools that you can use. Okay. One is food. Okay, so the a huge lifestyle change that you can make to get your diabetes into control is the types of food that you're eating. So with the oils, you know, actually comes this, the spices come along with the oils. And so some of the issues that we have with what we're eating can lead to causing this stimulation of imbalance with insulin and blood sugar in your body. So if you're eating too many processed foods, fatty foods, too many carbs, like way too many carbs, you know, so that can just throw things off balance. So you want to have a good balance of protein, fat, and carbs. However that looks to you, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, keto, paleo, you know, it's a lot going on out there nowadays, but however you decide to eat, you want to still be in balance there. And one thing about our food, the food that we eat, the food that we buy in the store is not always the best, right? So how about we take our power back and grow our own food? Now, I know that everyone doesn't have the luxury of being able to have a garden outside or the desire to do that. I know for me, every time I planted something, whether it was flowers or you know, herbs, everything died. They always died. I even had an air plant, quote unquote air plant, where all you had to do was spray it with water. You didn't have to water it, didn't have to be in soil. I killed that too. So not good with plants at all. So in 2020, at the height of the pandemic, you know, I was living in New Jersey, and at the time we had to stand out in line to go into the food store, and it, you know, it was crazy, right? Of course, I really wasn't liking people picking all over my food, especially fresh fruits and vegetables. So when the tower garden was introduced to me, or actually I remembered someone had introduced me to the tower garden, and so I thought about it's like it would be nice if I could grow my own food. And I was told that I can grow food in my home because I lived in a condo. I did not have a backyard. Any of the herbs I was trying to grow were on the windowsill, and things just didn't work out. So I said, okay, I will give this a try. I only pay a very small fee every month for a year. So I said, okay, no, that's not so bad. So over here on the right, you can see, so when you get your tower garden, it comes with everything you need except water. Everything you need is in the kit. So you get your seeds. And so I was just showing me planting my seeds in this these little holes called rock wool, and these get separated and get put into the tower. So once they started sprouting, so you can see this is before I turn the lights on, I just put these in the sun, and lo and behold, it's a miracle that's been happening for thousands of years. The seeds sprouted, and I started to grow. All right. I was very, very excited. And then it just grew so much that I was like, oh my God, I can't eat fast enough. So this is in a matter of 4 weeks. The sprouts took about 2 weeks. And then a couple of weeks later, here we are. And so how does that happen? This is called aeroponic gardening. So you put in this bottom portion here, you put all the nutrients that the plants need in order to grow, goes down here in a water base, and then it's just water. Like I said, that's the only thing you need to add. And with the pump, the water is pumped up into the tower and then trickles back down to the roots. Okay. And so I was growing, I have here spinach, kale, arugula, leaf lettuce, chard is on the back, I had basil and cilantro. It's really good. And eventually I started to grow parsley up at the top. I did want to show you something real quick here. Share. So I wanted you to see that there are let me just show this picture here. So this just shows how the water sprouts up at the top. It bubbles all the way up to the top. And then it's going to go down these little holes, okay, into the, and trickle down into the roots of the plant. But there are two models. So what I showed was basically the indoor model, although you can use it outdoors. And then this model is basically the outdoor model, but you can use it indoors. What's nice about this model, the bigger one, is you can have your small watermelon, squash, pumpkin, you can have that growing, kind of sitting on top of here and grows quite well. And they basically do a lot better outside. Otherwise, for both of them, you can put a cage on here and you can grow tomatoes and string beans and strawberries. Anything that grows on the vine, you can basically grow here. What you cannot grow are root vegetables. That's the only thing. So your carrots and potatoes cannot work on a tower. But I think a couple of people have tried it and were a bit successful, but it's not the best thing to do. You can even grow okra. People have grown great okra. on here. Okay, go back to my slide. All right, so again, this is by a company called Juice Plus. They're the ones that design this this tower. And what they also have is fruits and vegetables in a capsule. So let's say you're somebody who, I don't want to deal with the tower. I just want to get the nutrients inside of my body. No problem. And that's a good thing. So you want to get these nutrients inside. So these are fruits and veggies and berries in a capsule, right? So it kind of helps you with fulfill that gap between what you should eat and what you don't eat, right? So imagine getting 30 plus different fruits and vegetables every day. Even if you juice, which I'm big on juicing, like I said, I do detox programs. Even if you juice, you're not going to get it all. You're just not going to be able to juice it all. So, for me, at first I was a little reluctant, but, I said, this makes sense. This makes a whole lot of sense. I can't do it all every day. It's too much. So, I started, taking these fruits and vegetables and berries. And then we have a blend of omega fatty acid, and that's all plant-based, right? It's sourced from plant seeds and algae. And it's omega 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. Okay. So when you think of, some people think, oh, it's another vitamin, which it's not. This is whole food nutrition. When you think of a vitamin, this is what you'll see in the supplements of vitamins, right? But they are nowhere near all the phytonutrients that you would get in an apple, and that's what Juice Plus does. The fruits and vegetables are freeze-dried, put into a powder, and put into a capsule, but all the phytonutrients are still there. They're not lost. The only thing that's not there is the fiber that you may get from the fruit, but we can supplement that another way. Or this is not saying do not eat fruits and vegetables. Absolutely not. Please do continue to eat fruits and vegetables. I do. So again, I get whatever little components that Juice Plus cannot get. But you're getting, just for an apple, you're getting all of these hundreds of phytonutrients still in your body. All right. So again, here's with the fruit, veggies, and berries. These are over 30 fruit, veggies, and berries that you get in your body every day. Okay. And just one more thing I wanted to show about that. See if I can get over to this slide. So one great thing about this company, another great company that has wonderful integrity like Young Living, they clinically research Juice Plus. There are a lot of doctors and nurses that use Juice Plus. As a matter of fact, I asked my mother's doctor if my mother should start using Juice Plus. He said absolutely he uses Juice Plus. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Because usually anything else that I've suggested for my parents, like moringa or wheatgrass, and they kind of turn up their face. But with this, they were like, sure, yeah, no problem. And So this is there are 40 peer-reviewed publications that are available. You can see them online. I'll have this information for you in different areas. So again, getting back to diabetes, right? We're looking at, there was a study done that showed that Juice Plus capsules support the body's ability to use insulin effectively and help improve body composition by reducing abdominal fat in one study with children and adults. So, and so you can see the studies here. You can click here and actually look at some of the studies, right? And I thought that was so quite awesome, that, you know, for different areas of the body, that we're able to get ourselves back in line, get ourselves back in sync, and have preventative measures so that we don't go that way, right? That is a big key, huge. So here's my contact information. You can reach me on my cell, 973-223-3144. I'm offering a free 15-minute consultation. That's the best way to get a hold of me, call or text. Or if you include a donation for this fabulous telethon that the Powerful Pioneers, led by Brother Rojo, has put together, I am offering a free full consultation. It's usually about an hour, plus a free oil up to a $15 value, okay? And remember, I said that if you purchase the bigger oil kit, I will include a book, the essential oil book with that. You could also catch me on the web. Oops. And I have links to my essential oils, Tower Garden, and Juice Plus, and my email address. You can find me on social media by searching for Io Hines Bankole. I'll put all this information in the chat as well. Okay. And that is it for me. Let's see if my camera is working anymore. Okay. I never know. It comes and goes. Looks like it may still be working. All right. It's a little shaky. It's a little shaky. I'm getting lines here. But thank you so much. Thank you, Brother Rojo, again, for allowing me to share this information. And I hope and pray that everyone got something, a good takeaway. I would love to know what any takeaways you had with this presentation. So thank you so much.
Let's go.
Peace and blessings, family. My name is Baba J, Dr. Onaje Muid, and I am honored to be in your presence, in your space. The work that I have found out that you've been doing is incredible. And of course, the watchword is Afrofuturism. We have to see ourselves in the future with our families, with our communities, with our people, being the world leader that we are. So it's wonderful to be here. I would like to ask Brother Rojo, how much time do I have? I don't want to be too wordy or too lengthy, but I need to know how much time do I have that's comfortable.
The floor is yours, family. Do your thing.
Oh, okay, all right. So a little bit about myself. son of Sylvia Oliver and Thomas Oliver, father of my husband, I'm a grandfather, and I've been on this orbit now for 71 years. And as a result of that, of course, I've picked up some wisdom along the way, some perspectives. And I think what's probably is most notable is that I was raised in the time, I'm going to go back to 1968, when James Brown came out with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. For those of you who are much younger than myself, you would have no idea of how groundbreaking that was, because up until that time, Black was fighting words. You call somebody Black, that means you about to fight. In fact, it was so derogatory that when we used to call, or other people used to call our women the B word, for you to dig it in to make it really effective, you would call a Black so and so and so. To be born in a time when that was this epiphany, it was truly a revolution of Black consciousness. And from that time, fast forward, I've looked into the hurt, the pain, the suffering of our people. And as a result of that, I became involved with the reparations movement. So currently I serve as the male co-chair of NCOBRA's, that's the National Coalition of Blacks Reparations in America Health Commission, as well as the co-chair of the National Association of Black Social Workers National Relations Committee, and a few other organizations, but those are two major roles that I'm playing. But also, I'm the founder of Wahine Misu Healing Well, and the name Wahine Misu is a Kemet word that means rebirth. It means reconnecting to oneself in the spirit of Ma'ad, of order, balance, and harmony, reciprocity, truth, and justice, and compassion. And as a result of that, all these things are really talking about the love and the healing of our people. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've done. My master thesis was Then I Lost My Spirit, an analytical essay on transgenerational trauma theory and its application to people of color nations, particularly looking at the Lakota Nation and looking at the New African Nation. And then for my doctorate, I continued that work looking for a solution, a healing to historical trauma. And there I discovered a modality that's called psychodrama. I'm going to shut my mic off for a minute while I cough. Excuse me. I'm hoping that you can see the throne that I'm sitting on. But you would like to see that. I'm at a spa, in fact, in New Jersey, that has all these different saunas that you can go into with all kind of minerals, gold, and so many different things. Amethyst, have the crystals, something, of course, that we need to own ourselves. But in the meantime, we'll go where we can locate it. So healing historical trauma through psychodrama. And I had mentioned in Cobra, and I'm hoping that everyone is going to get the report. It's called The Harm is to Our Genes. This was back in 2020. And we did work with John Hopkins, some researchers there, to look at this question of how the trauma has been passed down from one generation to the next. When we look at our history, this is abbreviated. Of course, we've been here, first of all. And in addition to that, Abu Bakari, when he came in, 1200? But we're going to just look at 1619 for right now, right? So we're looking at a period of time, 1619 to 1885, chattel slavery, all types of horrors that had never been experienced by any people in the world ever. And we did that for all those many years. And then, of course, right after 1865, so-called emancipation, which it wasn't, it was just a transformation. Of course, the 13th Amendment said slavery and voluntary servitude is abolished, except in the case of what? A punishment of a crime. We never got judged by our peers, so forth and so on. So we go from chattel slavery to 13th, to convict leasing, to sharecropper, to peonage, to Jim Crow, right into mass incarceration. So nothing has changed. It's been the same reality. That is the purpose of domination, subjugation for the purpose of exploitation. And now we are in a situation where we fully understand all the dynamics. We always knew that all the things they did to us using terror was for the purpose of fear and subjugation. We knew that, but we never had a science to actually explain it, and now we do. So this brother here, a good friend of mine, says that, let me move the screen up a little bit. He says that Sihukwe Belanca filed the first of its kind reparations petition to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Even though the case was dismissed, we're still getting closer to actually having what is called standing. The United States is guilty of state-sanctioned ethnocide, Belanca said, referring to the deliberate and systematic destruction of our cultures. We are living as victims of it today. And for the first time in human history, because of DNA testing, we can actually recover from ethnocide. So this is moving us into this discussion of the effects of the Ma'afa, right? Ma'afa is a key Swahili word that means the great tragedy. And if we look at it from 1619 to 2019, right? What's that, 400 years? That's like 20 generations of people who have been under constant attack, under constant assault, and internalizing this trauma each generation. So when we talk about genes or DNA, we're talking about how the genes express themselves and how they're activated. So epigenetics is a relatively new science that says that it's not a question of nature or nurture, as people were saying many years, probably before many of you was born. There was this: is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Well, actually, it's both, right? It's both. So epigenetics says that if there's a negative environment, it's going to affect the brain development of the child at a very early age. So we can see that we can be disadvantaged from the very beginning of the child's life, and even prior to that, inside the womb, when the woman is in the period of gestation, that if she's under stress, and now Black women are, that she was, in fact, will be passing those same hormones to the embryo. So the embryo was growing in a state of confusion and unsafety. Now, as this is true, we also know that knowing what happened to us through certain mechanisms, through epigenetics, we can also now find the solutions how to reverse that. We're going to talk about that a little later. But the concept of historical trauma was first coined by my dear friend, Dr. Maria Yellowhorse. Braveheart Yellowhorse. And she is a phenomenal Lakota woman who did her doctorate on this subject. To date, my understanding, she's the only one who has actually had the permission and used the so-called academy to actually study it. Yes, Dr. Joy DeGrue has studied it, but I'll talk about her in a moment. But looking at Maria's definition, she says it's a collective and emotional and psychological injury both over the lifespan and across generations. So it's through in the lifespan of when you're living, but over the generations above you and below you, resulting from a cataclysmic history of genocide. And for us, this also is true as well. It's not just slavery that we endure genocide as well. So Maria says that many of the things we look as the problem, be it drug abuse, be it sexual, child sexual assault, all these different things, right? Domestic violence. She said that's not the problem. She said those are the effects coming out of the legacy of genocide, and of course, also the legacy of slavery. So, what are the effects? Unsettled trauma, increased child abuse, all the social conditions in which we're living is a result of unresolved historical trauma. Let's see, we'll go to the next slide. So, probably many of you know the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy. Her book was Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Her story is a little different than Maria's, had the same interests and intent, but when she wanted to do this study when under her first degree, which was psychology, they refused her. They wouldn't give her permission to do it. So then she went to social work thinking that she would get uh, a more wider open receptions. She did not. So she had to use post-traumatic slave syndrome as an explanation to show the behavior that people were going through. So it's different than when you're using it as the framework of your dissertation itself versus having to use it as an explanation. All the work is still relevant and it's still pertinent and it's extremely significant, but we do want to draw the difference. So Joy, Dr. DeGruy says that post-traumatic slavery is a theory that explains the ideology, the history of many of the adaptive survival behaviors in African American communities and throughout the United States and the diaspora. So she says adaptive survival behavior is interesting, right? She didn't say uh, diseased or malfunctions. And this is so important for us to begin to use the principle of Kujichagulia, right? Self-determination, where we define what our reality is. In the medical terms, they call it nosology. Nosology is the science that says what are the difficulties or maladapted ways that people are adjusting to harsh conditions. Dr. Grew goes on to say it's a condition that exists as a consequence of multi-generational oppression of Africans and their descendants, resulting from slaveries of chattel slavery. So we have a better handle on the Ma'afa than we ever had before, and the conditions are getting worse. So it's the two realities exist at the same time. I'm not going to go into all the details of this chart, which is called Historical Social Health Overview, but I'm giving you a view, um, a prism through which you can see how these things very well may be connected. And I'm looking at these different levels as um, planes of existence. So most of our people are living on the top level, maybe the top and second level. That is, we see people, we say hello, we say goodbye, we do whatever we do, right? That's the lived experience. But underneath that, it's already coming out of a survival culture that Dr. DeGru just mentioned, right? I call it induced survival culture, because culture, to be yours, has to be generative, has to be embracing, has to be informative, has to be encouraging. So when you are oppressed, when the people are oppressed, they're denied that right. In fact, that's the second wall in which we lost. And now our work is to regain our ability to define our culture. So in induced survival culture, that is coming into existence out of what? Out of the cultural pain from a people of oppression. And that, in fact, is no more than the effect of what historical trauma. So the bottom rung speaks to the causational level, right? So Marimba Ani speaks about living in Ma'at or truth, forgetting, and then reclaiming ourselves through Sankofa. So look at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. 12 o'clock being Ma'at, being truth, forgetting ourselves, and then having to affirm Sankofa, to go back and retrieve what you lost. And then once we fully evolve or reinstate that, then we move back into Ma'at at 6 o'clock, and then we forget again. And then, so she said that was the cycles that many of our civilizations were in. But of course, that was interrupted through the Ma'afa, right? The transatlantic enslavement period. So now our people are in pretty much in the state of Sankofa right now, and the Ma'afa still continues. It's not over. We can walk outside, we can see our people sleeping in the street. We can see our children being snatched up by um, what is called Administration of Child Services, right? We can look at all the conditions and see that oppression is still real and alive, which is the Ma'afa. So what this chart does is give us a way of looking at where we at in our recovery process, in our healing process. And at a later time, I'd like to just spend some time just on this chart alone. This was one of the things that came through from the ancestors that gave me a picture of the ways in which social reality occurs. So our work is to gain wellness, is to create, improve our social ecology, right? We think about ecology in terms of the world, the physical environment, but there's also the social ecology, which is equally important, which is the aspect of reparations, which is called rehabilitation. So what do we want? We want wellness, right? We can say wellness is a positive outcome that is meaningful for people in the many sectors of society. Now, our sector of society is a sector that is existing in what is called domestic colonialism. And if we look at all our neighborhoods are no more than micro domestic colonies. We don't control our politics. We don't control our economics. We have the worst health conditions, and we have the highest rent, the highest uh, expenses, right? So our work is to find a solution to the problem. What is the problem? The problem is the Ma'afa. What is the solution? The solution is for us to take our health, our mental, physical, spiritual, cultural, social health in our own hands and recreate a lifestyle that is going to survive forever and ever and ever. In this report, two sections I'm going to point out. One is section 6. This 6th section discusses factors that can mitigate the effects of historical and personal trauma and promote strength and resilience. We must become experts on our healing and our wealth. Wahimi Misu, the nonprofit, says we need a healer and a healing well in every home. We need a healer and a healing well in every home, because having a healer is wonderful, but we can't disintegrate the healers with so much work to do. So they need to get replenished. So it must be a replenishing cycle that can only happen if there's a well where one can be constantly restored. So number 7 of this little booklet is the 7th section, delineates policies, practice, and research recommendations to address systematic racism. It's not only racism that we must address. Racism is just a means to an end. It's a tool. What is the tool for? Is to continue our subjugation, which is to maintain the domestic colonies in which we live. So we don't want to get confused by treating the symptom and not treating the cause. The cause of our problem, the real problem, is our captivity, which is held under colonialism, domestic colonialism in particular. So if we go to looking at some of the ways in which we can see the different ingredients or the different involvements in which we are as a people engaged in, we can see how the solutions are starting to evolve. And Cobra says that there's at least five punishment areas that we want to look at it and understand and to solve. One, the first one is peoplehood and nationhood. A people without declaring themselves a nation will be treated as individuals. We have to move beyond the political naivety that we find ourselves in and become politically mature, which means we must demand ourselves as being not just a group of individuals, but as a nation. And a nation is different than a nation state. We even have a right to a nation state. And this is in the United Nations. It's called I think it's Special Committee 15 that speaks about the process of decolonization. So the second area of harm is in education. The third is health. The fourth is wealth, connected to, of course, poverty. And then the fifth is criminal justice. Those are the five. And there's more areas, but we figure that we'll start with those five. And then there are work that we're doing, and we invite you to join in COBRA so that we can fully populate these commissions so that we can start to talk about the solutions. It's not enough to describe the problem, to be descriptive of the problem. We must move beyond that, and we must become descriptive to the solution. Sometimes that's called the critical evaluation, when you have both the description of the problem, but also the solution. So in COBRA is engaging in that work. We think that one of our major accomplishment is this harm report, because it gives us a blueprint to not only look to the past to see what has happened to us, but also to look towards the future. So we're talking about general public health. How now do we start to think about public health as something that we own, not that the government owns, but we own it. But it takes a mindset in order to own that. It was Frantz Fanon who said each generation, out of its own relative obscurity, must discover its own mission, either to fulfill or portray. And obviously, this generation has been given this task because we are thinking in such broad terms. It's almost like a second revolution. If I referenced 1968 in terms of James Brown, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. But young people today, like yourselves, have more understanding and appreciation of their Blackness, of our Blackness, than any other population, in terms of the ages that you are and the continued years in which you are holding on to that. But you're going to find out, maybe, hopefully, maybe you won't, but you're going to find out possibly that many of the people that are very conscious right now, they say woke, you're going to see them drifting back, because the pressure to assimilate and to return to Eurocentric point of view is so vast and dense, that many of our greatest speakers and leaders find themselves pulled back into that trap. So pay attention. So part of your work is, how do you keep your own consciousness, yes, your African consciousness, but how then are you going to keep those around you who now are your peers? How are you going to hold on to them to keep them moving forward? I can speak on many examples of the force that's pulling us back, right? So even when you're moving from the Ma'afa into Sankofa, you're going to see people being pulled back into the Ma'afa. So epigenetics, transgenerational inheritance is speaking about how the trauma has been passed down in the gene structure. When we one example, and I think one area that the two areas that I work on, I work in a few areas, but the two main areas that I work in is infant mortality prevention and maternal mortality prevention. Black women are dying in some places like Brooklyn 15 times the rate of white women having a baby in Brooklyn. In other parts around the city, it's at least 4 times the rate in which white women are dying. It's not an epidemic. An epidemic suggests that there was some state of stability prior to this, and then something happened to make it go into this, exaggerated state. This has been the constant state, so it's not a crisis. It's a continual state of oppression, which is called the constant in mathematics. So one area I work with is infant and maternal mortality prevention. The other area I spend most of my time is gun violence prevention. So if we look at gun violence, and I'm saying these are consequences of historical trauma. When the body is sick, all the parts of the body is sick, is ill, right? So for people who are living in domestic colonialism, of course, you could expect there are going to be negative effects in every aspect of their lives. So this is the two aspects in which I spend time with. The conditions are going to cause gun violence, easy access, of course, high inequality, concentrated poverty, underfunded public housing, under-resourced public services, and the list goes on, right? And this is the thing where I think some of you are going to be surprised. It was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, we must recognize that Black people are living in domestic colony. King said this in 1967, but I don't even think you've heard it, because most people don't really know King. King was in Ghana in 1958 when Ghana became a nation state. King. Now think about it, 1957, 1958, what Black people was even interested in knowing anything about Africa? Maybe Paul Robeson, right? But King was in Ghana. He felt a need to be there. So he's always had this perspective, but he was always very measured in terms of when he would give a certain kind of analysis. I want to dedicate this talk to the brothers in Staten Island. The group is called True to Life, and they're my inspiration in terms of much of my work. And just recently, uh, you see the men standing in this frame. On the left-hand side, you go 1, 2, 3. That young man is Jalen. Jalen was found unresponsive last Wednesday. He died. So I'm dedicating this to him. Um, we don't know what was going on, what would happen, but all we know is that this organization and the family are in tremendous pain. His loss. He was 28 years old. 28 years old. And if you see the person right in the center with the glasses on, that's Iron Mike. Iron Mike is his big brother. But because their father had died much earlier, Iron Mike really raised him. So now Iron Mike is suffering the loss of both his younger brother and his son, because he raised him in the social. So these are the brothers and sisters that I love and respect so very much. So if we're going to solve gun violence, it's going to require that we take a new approach. And the new approach is going back, reclaiming ourselves. That's why we're using Wahimi Misu. That means what? It means rebirth, to restore Ma'at, order, balance, and harmony, reciprocity, truth, justice, compassion. Is bringing these factors back into our life. And I found that this clinical, therapeutical intervention called psychodrama can be very effective in that way, and I'm going to explain why. So, of course, anything we do, we have to make it our own, which means we have to make it African-centered. And so many of the symbols I use when I conduct these services are Adinkra symbols, because they say so much. And people would actually choose a symbol when we start the session, and then they'll explain why they chose that symbol. So you're doing what you're creating relationships. It was my dear brother Joshua Lee, who's a phenomenal human being who does so much great work that it's hard to put it in a thimble. But he was my social worker, psychodrama supervisor, trainer. The model I use is called the therapeutic spiral method, was created by Hudgens, and she, as you can see her pictured on the lower right-hand side. I knew I was supposed to study that method because when I found out that she had, not even through our own intention, but was coached by a native woman, and was had to go through a vision quest, was given an eagle feather, and that was a sign to me saying, okay, I'm in the right place. But she knew that she couldn't really teach me or assist me in my own growth and development while I was getting my doctorate. So Joshua was in fact my supervisor, trainer, and still is to this very day. But this particular type of psychodrama, therapeutic spiral method, is an evolution from the classical psychodrama. What I mean by that is this: Moreno, who you see top left, was the one who created, and many of the things that we do in social work actually came from him, but he's not given the credit. Nonetheless, um, he was able to say, how do we use theater in a therapeutic fashion so that people can actually become themselves again, using what is called the authentic healing center. Everyone has this, or he calls it an authentic healing center. How do we get in touch with that again? How do we activate that again? This is what psychotrauma does. It helps people get in touch again with their authentic healing center and be able to share it with others. And the way that we know that one is making progress using this method is spontaneity, is something that shows up. Now, this is important to understand because what oppression wants to do is create predictability. It wants to be able to dictate exactly what's going to happen in such a fashion that in the end, whatever is produced, they will get the benefit and the people themselves will be undermined at the same time. So when we're moving from predictability to spontaneity, we know that that's a sign of liberation. That was another reason that made me feel that this was the right thing for me to study. What does it look like? Well, as we're talking about solving, or at least lessening the effects of the alpha, as we're talking about lessening the effects of historical trauma, we're saying that we have to understand our internalized psychic structures. That is to say, there's oppression, there's superiority of consciousness in terms of racism, but there's also inferiority in terms of consciousness, which is called internalized oppression. So the circle that you see on the right shows different stick figures. And let me give you a quick, brief understanding of that. Using the technique, we go through 3 phases. The first phase is called prescriptive roles, which is another way of saying strength roles. How do you build the strength? And the analogy I give is if somebody was going to go deep sea diving, really to the depths of the sea, they have to have on what? Iron or some way of protecting themselves from what? From the pressure. Psychodrama does the same thing. It protects you, it gives you a protective psychological barrier first before we start to deal with any of the issues. And I'll talk about that later. So that the prescriptive roles are the strengths, personal strengths, interpersonal strength, um, transpersonal strengths, right? We go through an exercise where you start to build those things on, and then we move into the trauma triangle, right? And you can see, you might not can see it, but the one pointing down is the protagonist. And down pointing to the victim, which is also the wounded child, and then to the right is the abandoning authority. So that's the essence of the way we look at how trauma is internalized. Uh, and then the work that we do is finding out what those things are. I think that there's another aspect, which I'm still working out the theory of it, and that is I call it the passive aggressive agent provocateur. And what I mean by that is when war takes place, there are different agents that are put in motion to create desired effects. And one of those agents is called the provocateur, agent provocateur. And in our case here in the United States, there were many times when we were infiltrated and they were talking about blowing up the Statue of Liberty or blowing up this or blowing it wasn't the people themselves. It was somebody coming in inciting that. And many times they arrested people on these false charges. And so, in some cases, they were released or found innocent. In many cases, they was found guilty. But because we have internal, all of us, not them or those, all of us have internalized oppression. It comes out in different ways. So the thing is to not blame the person, but actually to blame and identify that energy that's taking place, that psychology that exists and purge it, right? So so after we do different exercises, starts to explore any one of those trauma personalities or traits, all the way to the right is transformation. How then do you transform? So psychodrama is taking you through these three phases: the prescriptive phase, the trauma phase, and the transformative phase. So Wahimi Misu looks at a grounding, right, in that first phase, the strengthening, right, looking at problems. It doesn't have to be trauma necessary, but any kind of problem that a person or a family is going through, and then of course moving to the transformative phase. Now, you might be able to read this as not post-traumatic growth. You might say, well, what is that? There is truth to the fact that when we experience a trauma, there can be some positive effects. You probably know of something happening like this where someone was in a car accident or something tragic happened to them. And then prior to that, they didn't really have any spirituality, but they got spiritual after that, or maybe even religious, right? Maybe different insights come. So there are times when one gets a benefit or the best that they can get out of a situation like that. But I'm very careful to say it happens on a wholesale level. I talk about micro post-traumatic growth. Micro means like in that particular incident, one can grow from it, one can rebound from it. But because domestic colonialism still exists, because oppression still exists, we can't say that is really true post-traumatic growth because we haven't gotten past the things that's happening to create the trauma and pain in the first place. So if we look at the model that I created, the Wahine Misu Healing Well method, using those three phases, I projected that we have to have a different way of engaging our people with a different language when we're talking about therapy. And you will notice that the healing the mind world, right? The internalized personal strength, that those kinds of exercises goes on from week 1 to 5. The second phase is healing the cultural wound, right? The interpersonal strengths. Internalized is the first one. Interpersonal strengths is starting to build in the second 5 weeks, 6 to 10. And then the last 5 weeks, 11 to 15, healing the village sacred hoop, communal strength. So for those of you who might know about social programs, they usually talk about when a group is over, we're terminating the group. We have to be careful about the words we use because we can't just take something and just ingest it and think it's going to resonate with our being and our relationship and our experience. It won't. We can still use the basic principles, but we have to change the wording such that it fits better with us. So families come into Wahine Misu and they join the family circle. At the end, they join the village circle. So I didn't say you terminate anything we do. We don't want it to dissipate. We want to grow it. So we have to continue to organize and continue to grow our social strength and our social relationships, right? Our social institutions. So we have to, every time we do something, the question becomes, how do I expand it? How to continue it so this remains strong, but how do I expand it so it's starting to rebuild our cultural reality, our social ecology? In research, the method for one way of getting people to join something is called the recruitment strategy, which is using what is called convenience sampling. One person tells another person, tells another person. So the healing well, right? A healer in every home, a healing well in every home. I want to return to gun violence. In the last maybe 10 years, could be a little longer than that, people started to say gun violence is not just an individual thing. In fact, it's a group thing, it's a societal, it's a community thing. And one of the most popular public health approaches to solving gun violence, or at least reducing, is called cure violence. And this is the one of the public health interventions I'm familiar with after working with New York City for the last, what, 8 years, 8, 9 years. And what Cure Violence says is that violence is a community disease. Okay, and we can go with that. And therefore, the problem is gun violence, right? So disease is creating the violence, and then which is the problem, and the problem is solved by intervening in terms of retaliatory gun violence, right? Which is the consequence. So cure violence, their strategy is looking at the problem itself, and the problem in terms of the actors, right? Uh, the shooters, as they're called. They used there was a doctor who used public health thinking, and what he did was to look at the disease, the pathogen, uh, who was interrupting the disease, so forth and so on. And then he created social roles that would duplicate the public health model, because when he came back from Africa, he looked at the map and saw the distribution of the gun violence in Chicago. And he said, wait a minute, it looks like looking at a disease cell. And then he started to think, well, how can I start to work this in mathematics? It says that A is equal to B, and if C is equal to B, then A and C is equal to each other. So he used that rationale to create this whole strategy called cure violence, and it's been working. It's been shown in Chicago that when they were using it, the gun violence went down, and when they defunded it, the gun violence went up. So this has happened all throughout the country. We need to know about these interventions, and we have to participate in them. But let me say this to you. That's not enough, because all the things that's coming out, more likely than not, it's going to deal with the question of reform and not revolution. And what I mean by that, in terms of the thinking that actually defines the problem is not gun violence. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If we say that community gun violence is the problem, you can see in this chart, which is different from the other chart I showed you, the determinant I'm saying is domestic colonialism, not the disease itself. I'm saying that that's the real determinant that's creating the problem, which I could even put in the middle. I can say which is creating a disease, and that disease is creating, gun violence. But still, nonetheless, we have to deal with the consequences with retaliatory gun violence. FBI statistics show that anywhere from 75 to 95% of the gun violence that is continued is because of retaliatory gun violence. So that's where we have to draw our attention. That's where we have to put the work. So what Wahini Misu does is says, how do we get to those families and help them come up with a different solution rather than taking the life of the person who took the life of their loved one? That's where our work is. That's where we have to get involved. Right. So the strategy is directed to break gun violence, retaliatory gun violence shootings with families with the Wahini Misu method. So going back to psychodrama, there's many what is called safety structures that we use, and one of the safety structures that we use is art, right? Because when we use art, we're using the left and the right side of our brain, and when you're solving trauma, that's what you want to do. You want to bring the cognition to the trauma imprints, and trauma doesn't it doesn't it's not stored in the frontal lobe, it's stored in the body itself. So that's why when something happens to a person, they can smell something and it can be a triggering effect. They can hear something and it can be a triggering effect. They can see something and it creates a triggering effect, right? Because the trauma gets bifurcated all throughout the body, but only when we can bring cognition to, and meet the left and right, meet the thinking, analytical aspect with the emotional aspect, the psychological aspect. We can bring those two together. That is the way in which healing occurs. And isn't that interesting, right? Because when we think of the ankh is what? The symbol of the male and the female, the penis and the vagina, which creates what? The seed, which creates life. So here, even in trauma solutions, it's the ankh because it's the blueprint of the universe. So art is very important in terms of healing our trauma. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this uptick of violence throughout all of our domestic, our micro domestic colonies, because they have taken art out of the curriculum. They've taken gym out of the curriculum. They've taken all these things that was able to release the trauma and the pain and suffering and given us endorphins so that we could feel happy about life, joyful about life. So there's a direct correlation between taking these types of interventions out of the school system and leaving the children bereft and empty and unresourced and angry and enraged. And the only thing they can do is express the rage. I have a theory. My theory is that gun violence, if we using A is equal, if A is equal to B, and if C is equal to B, then A and C are equal to another. Using that same logic, when we talk about um, food disorders like bulimia, it's been found it's not really the question of the food, it's really the question of power. When that person doesn't have power, they have found a way to do things with their body, feeling some sense of power at the expense of the body. Well, think about it. If our community is a whole organism that doesn't have power or haven't realized it yet, right? Well, could it be that the gun violence is one way in which it's getting expressed at the expense of what? At the expense of the body. I haven't written much about it. It's just like a very cloudy theory that I'm working with, but I think it's true. In psychodrama, we have something called telly, and telly is you can say something. I mean, you can hear someone's thoughts, or you can repeat some thoughts. And when we do these things, which is called doubling, it's amazing how the person standing behind someone else can actually say something to the person who's sitting in the chair, and it can be that right thing. Now they have the right to say no, it's off, it's on, but the mere fact that we can do that is incredible. There's so much stuff who we are as these divine manifested souls having a human experience. Is so many things about that that we don't know. Why? Because we live in a Eurocentric paradigm. All these things were understood in our African context, but certainly not in the European context. So anyway, art is very important, and we use art as one of the safety structures. So in social work, I'm a social worker. We talk about human understanding human behavior in the social environment, but not just social environment, in the historical environment, in the political environment. And of course, when we say that, then we're talking about the mafia, we're talking about slavery, we're talking about genocide, we're talking about domestic colonialism, all these things Blessings, family. We had somewhat of a technical difficulty. The thing I think for us to remember is that we are each other's medicine. We are each other's liberation medicine. So the exercise that we can do is just say, by rubbing your hands together, I am healing. I am healing. Thinking of raindrops coming down, I'm healing. But we use crickets to say, you are healing. We bring nature into the room and say, you are healing. And then if we had a chance, we would stand up or we would stomp our feet on the ground using buffalo medicine and say, we are healing. And then we take a deep breath in. Nothing happens without spirit. Our people are healing. Take a deep breath in. Our people are healing. I am healing. You are healing. Open up our hearts. We are healing. Deep breath in. Our people are healing. So hopefully some of these ideas have excited you, have interested you, and that you'd want to learn about them and study. There was a training coming up August, I mix up my A's, April, um, the third weekend in April, 15, 16, or 17, I think, where we're going to be doing a workshop on this with the brother I had mentioned to you before, Joshua Lee. But the second week in April, 12, 13, and 4, 11, 12, and 13, and those dates could be wrong. The second week in April, we're doing another type of healing. Some of you know, all of you know the name Tupac Shakur, and many of you might even know the name Mutulu Shakur. And may Allah be pleased with his soul. Mutulu, with a group of brothers and sisters in the Bronx called the Lincoln Collective, created this methodology of using 5-point, and they call it auricular acupuncture. You can use needles in these 5 points, or you can use seeds. And we in Cobra has created what is called Millions for Mutulu campaign. And back in 2022 was year one. The next year, 3 was getting 100. And then every year thereafter, we want to multiply that times 10 so that we reach 1 million of people signing on to the declaration declaring August the 8th the Dr. Mutulu Shakur Community Health Day, and having programs around that, but also recruiting people to learn what these techniques are. So we're having a training in Philadelphia, and I'm hoping that some of you are interested to come and get that training by 2 of the top trainers. One is Dr. Kakaye Patterson out of DC, and also Walter Basque from New York Seafood, martial arts master, who was with Mutulu the whole time back in 68, 69 when they created this at Lincoln Hospital in New York City to minimize and even reverse not only the opioid crisis, but also methadone as well. So they were saying that has to be another solution rather than trading one drug for another drug. Remember, oppression seeks to control, to dominate, and exploit. And as long as they can predict and control your behavior, they are exploiting you, controlling you. So they wanted to liberate them, not only from the drugs, but to liberate them from the mental um, mentality of colonialism. So they always had political education involved. So if one chooses to come and be a part of this training, you're going to get so much from it. And so we have to continue to generate different healing methodologies for the body, for the mind, for the soul, for the spirit, for our people. And we are certainly doing that. And I guarantee you, your participation in either the Wahini Misu healing method using psychodrama, or with and could be in conjunction with also the 5 points, can be something that would help you along that way. So those are 2 trainings coming up in April. Second weekend is for the acupuncture, the auricular 5 points. The third weekend is for psychodrama. I think I got it right. This is Baba J, Dr. Onaji Muid. You can reach me at 646-662-0217. I was going to play a clip, but it may be a little difficult to show the clip. I'll pass it on to Brother Rojo. He can play that clip for you at another time. It's called The Last Bullet Campaign. That is pretty interesting. Brother Rojo, let me see if I can pull it up. Or do we have time, or you want to end here?
And there's a few minutes here. You can pull it up real quick.
Yeah, it's only like 2 minutes. Let's see if I can I'm going to wait because I don't want to have people waiting and interrupt the flow. And I already said the ancestors said that's enough. So when you get 71, you want to give it all away because you just don't know when the next day is going to when the next day isn't going to come. We know one day it isn't going to come in this physical form. So I will just be trying to like, yo, get it, get it while get get the books in the library while I'm here. So thank you so much for this time and space. I look forward to meeting all of you and learning about the things that you're doing and bringing them together. Uh, there's a book some of you may know called Healing Mother Earth, Queen of Four, and there's about 70 healers in that book. And I happen to be one of those persons in the book, and you can read a little bit more about me and the work I do in that book if you happen to have it in your library. If not, I encourage you to purchase it. And with that, I'm going to say Asante Sana. Thank you so very much. For those of you who are fasting, I would say blessed Ramadan to you. And say again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for having me.